Привет, как дела? Yeah, actually, I'm doing pretty good. Очень хорошо should be the word. I'm actually doing pretty great. I'm doing really well. Doing fantastic, actually. I just came back from Thanksgiving. Very good time with family. Very good times. Just traveling around, having good times. And I'm gonna make a quick video on a few things that happened during my journey in Thanksgiving. But the point of this video, in particular, is we're gonna do another political test because we all know, everyone wants to know my opinion on, political philosophies and theories and policies from some unknown YouTuber. Everyone wants that. I just know that. I'm just kidding. I'm just talking to the void, and I just for no reason. So I guess we should just dive right in because this test is 117 questions. Now I've done the political compass and the what was the other one? 8 values, and they all had a lot of questions. Not as much as this. I think this is like double. Like this is twice as big as any test. This is the big boy test. So I'm not gonna. A lot of these I'm gonna try. Like some questions, I'm just gonna say yes, and maybe just respond with a sentence, not actually explain why. Typically, I want to explain why, and this is something this test I've only taken like once before. It's such a fucking long ass test. So let's just dive right in. I think most of you already left. So I'm just gonna be talking to the void here. Yeah. Alrighty. So sometimes I'll maybe go detailed, but that's maybe. We should accept changes in our way of consuming food to limit the exploitation of nature. Whew. Now, in theoretical, practical thingies, I do kind of agree that we should look into ways to reform our agricultural section and a way we consume in modern consumeristic society. I agree. However, we have to look at the practical effects of what this even means. When people accept that premise, they're like, oh yeah, no, you can't eat chicken and you can't, you have to eat bugs. That's like, oh yeah, you have to start eating insects instead of chicken. Like, bitch, I ain't gonna, give up chicken or insects. But theoretically, I agree, but the practical people actually advocating for it are a bit cringe, actually really cringe. And no, I ain't gonna eat the bug. So since they kind of balance out, so I'm put neutral. State-run companies should be managed like private ones and follow the logic of the market, competition, profitability. Well, if they're state-run, they should be. Why profit? Like, we're not a damn business. If you're a state-run company, your job, your duty is to the people, to the nation. You're not here to make money. It's just state-run. Yeah. That what the fuck? Yeah, no, not profitability. But then again, like competition. It shouldn't be like. And, like, what state-run company? Like, what companies are we talking about? Like, what's a state-run company? I'm an American, so I don't know much about state-run companies, to be quite honest. But I'm not really against in theory, but I actually don't know. Like, profitability, like, no, because if you're a state, your duty is to the country and the people, not to make money. That's not the purpose. But, maybe, like, competitive? Yeah, I mean, but then. Like, usually a state-run company is like electricity or something, right? Like, but then, like, why do you need to compete with another electricity company? We only need one power line. So I don't know. I'm also going to put neutral here. Some sectors or type of employment should be financially supported. Now, that's something I absolutely agree with. The state should have a industrial policy to help people retain jobs or create jobs. Even if, we might not get the old type of manufacturing back, there is certain sectors of advanced manufacturing, working with artificial intelligence and, just all these stuff beyond me. I'm too dumb for that. But like, the government should sponsor those types of programs and an industrial policy to help get people back on jobs. So, when they lose their $30 an hour job from automation or offshoring, they could get a job that's about equally pays as well, not just a service sector job, which pays only half, at best. Looking for one's own profit is healthy for the economy. I mean, yeah, pretty much. I would agree. Elections organized by the state cannot question the powers in place. Well, that's kind of the point of elections. That's why we have them, to challenge the people in... That's kind of dumb. That's like the whole point of an election. It's kind of the same thing in the Democratic primary where they're like, oh, we're civil, like when a Democrat like insults another Democrat, like, oh, your policy is dumb, and then they're like, oh, no, that's you're being uncivil. That you're in a Democratic primary. You're supposed to be talking, engaging, debating. It's not here to debates aren't supposed to be just where you do your stump speech and say I hate Trump. Okay. And so that's the point of elections is to question, like, if you're running against someone, you're obviously like, hey, I think I could do it better. I don't think you're doing the best job you can, or I think you're actually doing a bad job. That's why elections are run. This is actually something organized. Yeah, that's fucking dumb. The sacrifice of some civil liberties is a necessity in order to be protected from terrorist acts. So this is something that's always been in every single freaking video. Test of mine. The test I take. I'm drinking Powerade right now. I think Powerade is a bit underrated. It's really good. So here's the thing. The thing is that a lot of people think we won the war on terror by bombing the ever-living crap of all the ISIS fighters and Al-Qaeda, and, we made a big showing off by spending, I think, what was it? There was a new number, like 16 trillion in the Middle East since 2001. Yeah, and we have got nothing out of it. It's kind of but the thing is, it's like, I'm gonna kind of drop a bit of a black pill here, but the terrorists won, I hope you guys know. We might have bombed them to oblivion, blew up a bunch of sand in the desert, but they destroyed our civil liberties. They made us fearful. They've taken away everything. And, honestly, we wouldn't have to worry about terrorist acts if we didn't import the people who did them. The best anti-terrorism act is an anti-immigration one, to be quite honest. But yeah, I mean, it's like, how about we, censor the internet, and we, spy on everyone, but then also import the people who are going to, bomb us. It's, the most dumb thing we've ever done. So, yeah, no, we shouldn't be giving up our right to privacy and rights of just being in a generally free society from very broad totalitarian powers. Now we could talk about the merits of which policies are, which ones should be added and which ones not. But generally, we shouldn't just throw out the baby with the throw out one of the underpinnings of civilization, being free to be private, in your own home, in your personal communications and such, just because we want to live in a diverse society. So I'll disagree. Prisons should no longer exist. No, they should definitely exist. I think that there should be a I actually kind of don't believe in life in prison without parole. I do believe in the death penalty, but I generally, if and I think the minimum should be 30 years. If you have to be put in prison for more than 30 years, you're a danger to society and should be put down, to be quite honest. But no, we shouldn't just abolish prisons. Where the fuck are we going to put, I actually wonder, what's the anarchist, conclusion, to prisons? Where are you going to deal with people who, sabotage your property? Or, do bad stuff on other people? Who's going to do it? Is it just a free-for-all? Or, it is necessary to implement assemblies to ration our production to the consumers according to their needs. That sounds like just a long way of saying from each according to his ability, each according to his need. I actually don't know what the fuck that even means. I've said this before. I should know what it means. I just don't know. We must fight against global warming. Yes, we should be more environmentally conscious and move, towards renewable energy. As a general rule of thumb. Environmental norms should be influenced by mass consumption and not from an authority. I mean, they should be influenced from both. Changes in an individual's way of life can induce changes in society. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just kind of natural extension of boycotts. People could boycott, and then that actually changes people's minds. It'd be, boycotts and public outrage actually work. This is what the cultural war is. The leftists want to make outrage about you didn't, you portrayed a white character white. He should have been black. And then, they cave. And the right-wing culture war should be fighting back against that and, influencing media and the culture like that. The culture war isn't we're going to fight against socialism. That isn't the culture war. But yeah, definitely. Sexual orientation is a social construct. This is fucking retarded. No, here's the thing. I'm just gonna blow up here. I think this is obvious. The human race is designed biologically, and just biologically to be heterosexual. And being homosexual isn't some sort of other social construct. It's you being mentally ill. And mentally ill is too much of a bad thing. Okay, well, if you don't want to be called mentally ill, well, you're not an equal to heterosexual. You're off. You're not right. So definitely, absolutely disagree. The right to be anonymous on the internet should be guaranteed. I mean, sure, yeah. The maximum allowed hours in the legal work should be increased. Now, I think this is if I remember correct, if I'm being economically allowed here, I think there's for example in France, I think the legal work week's 35 hours or something. And in the U.S., it's 40 hours. And if you work more than, say, 40 hours, you get paid time and a half or something, right? You get paid overtime, right? Is that how it works? And so lowering the legal work week means the more you work, the more you get paid. And I think with current technology, we can lower the, I'm not an expert, but generally, if you look at productivity, we're more productive, yet wages are stagnant. So I think we do need to have a more lower, how would you say it? Lower legal work rates. So not increase, so I disagree. Preserving non-urban ecosystems is more important than creating jobs. Well, yeah, I kind of like seeing forests and not, yeah. It is legitimate for a country to intervene militarily to defend its economic interests. Well, then, what do you mean? There could be, this is way broad. Generally, they shouldn't intervene. What do you mean? What do you mean? Oh, it's gonna, we have to invade Iran because we could get more oil, and having Iran there restricts our ability to get more oil. It's well, so doesn't mean we have to invade. So I'm gonna put neutral. Heavy penalties are efficient because they're dissuasive. It depends on the issue and depends on the crime. It is necessary to remove regulations in labor legislation to encourage firms to hire. No, we shouldn't. I mean, by that logic, you're well, I mean, there's a debate. Again, everything in life is kind of balanced between order and freedom, and then in here between the rights of business and the rights of labor. Could we abolish child labor laws, minimum wage laws, work safety laws to get more hirings? I mean, yeah, but is that the society we want? Is that, I like the idea is just as a more if you were going to hire people, there needs to be certain set minimum requirements. So we shouldn't. And maybe there's a regulation that's overdone. Maybe we could get rid of it. But it's not necessary to delete all of them or most of them. Revolutions will always end up in a bad way. Now, I'm generally against the LARPing Civil War types because it's not going to happen. Or maybe it will. I don't know. I could be proven wrong. But, American Revolution ended up pretty well. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be destructive. But will always end up in... I would disagree. My country must pay for the damages it caused by the crimes it committed in other countries. Nope. Abstinence should be preferred to contraception to preserve the true nature of the sexual act. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would agree. The state should be abolished. The state is natural. If people think we could abolish the state, and then when you ask them, okay, what's the alternative? There's they go blah blah blah, and then their end alternative is the state again, just in a different form. So no. It is necessary to teach history in order to create a sense of belonging to the nation. Yeah, definitely. Just having a historical, being taught history, just knowing your place and where you come from. You're not just some sort of atomized individual. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Because it just gives you a sense of, you look back at your past and there's a sort of, how would you explain it? You just understand where you come from. You're, let's say you're, Estonian, and you were born in 2000 or something. And you're like, wow, my parents, they fought against communist rule to have a free and independent Estonia. Just understand, you're not like, oh my god, why do I live in such a prosperous Estonian state? Because your parents fought and stood up to communism. That's why. So understand where you come from and understand your glorious history. And yes, you could be, understand that sometimes we fucked up, but just understand that you've come through the sweat and tears of your ancestors, and it's your duty to preserve it to the future generation. Exploitation of fossil fuels is necessary. I mean, yeah, but yeah, now, but we should. The question makes me sound like we should just continue using it. We should move off of it. I mean, yeah, it's necessary now. We can just drop it, but no. And it's important that health should stay a public matter. As a general rule of thumb, I agree that public health care is probably one of the one of the responsibilities of the state. I think just looking at the data, it runs much more efficiently than a private system. Just looking at healthcare systems around the world. Yes, and it doesn't mean everything. Maybe a hospital is just catering to the extreme wealthy, and they charge a lot, and maybe their services are even better. But everyone should have a basic health package. Everyone should be covered in a basic health package, generally speaking. Just morally and just practically on what you see from the data, it's just much more better to have a single payer or just some sort of public universal healthcare system. It is better to arrest someone potentially dangerous preventively rather than taking the risk of having them committing crime. Well, the point of arresting people is because they did a crime. You're not arresting people because they're dangerous. So who determines what's dangerous? Who determines, and like how even if they are dangerous, like when do we arrest them? Maybe, we already have laws in place. Like, for example, let's say you're about to commit a bombing, right? Well, there's a law that, like, if they capture you before you do the bombing, you're charged with a crime of, like, something. It's like conspiracy to do this. It's like you're gonna do this. Now, so those are, but it's not just arresting you. Oh yeah, we're gonna arrest you for doing a terrorist act. Well, if you didn't do the terrorist act, you can't arrest them for that. You only could arrest them for wanting to commit a terrorist attack. That is the difference. You can't just arrest someone and then. So I'm just gonna put this. Hacking has a legitimate place in political struggle. Like the WikiLeaks thing to expose what the people and higher ups are doing. Yeah, definitely. Though generally speaking, it's like I don't really like just sabotage and hacking and just revolutions in general. But I guess so. It is unfair to set a minimal penalty for an offense or a crime. I get where these people come from. I used to kind of believe in the rehabilitative school of thought, and I still think there's a how do you say it? A justification for certain things to be how would you say it? A minimum penalty. I mean, being rehabilitative in your criminal justice system. But I think that you should how would you say it? But so I understand that, like, well, you can't just be like, there's so much factors involved, but it's not unfair. I think that if you commit a rape, right? You commit just a violent rape, and you haven't been arrested before. Maybe you're an upstanding citizen, right? And you get convicted. I mean, it doesn't matter if this is your first offense. Now we could. If you do such a violent crime like a rape, then there should be a minimum penalty. Like, this is how much you have to serve. It doesn't matter if you were a perfect citizen before. It doesn't matter. You're gone for a certain amount of time. Because you did something so horrible that justice needs to be served. Like, oh, well, just give him a year. So no, I disagree. Transforming ecosystems durably to increase the quality of life of human beings is legitimate. Not necessarily at the expense of it, but at the humans and nature should combine and live in harmony with each other. I know that sounds hippy-dippy, but generally speaking, that should be what happens. Social differences between ethnic groups cannot be explained by biology. It actually can be. It can be explained by biology. In fact, I think now biology isn't everything, but I think if people actually push back on this left-wing dominated that we're all equal, then you might actually understand why there's social inequalities between ethnic groups. We need to establish a monarchy to federate the people and preserve our sovereignty. I'm actually kind of neutral. In America, probably not. I mean, we don't need a monarch, but I wouldn't abolish like the British or or Swedish monarchy, or is Sweden a monarchy or something. So I wouldn't abolish it. I think it actually has a place in the identity of Britain, or Britain, for example. But America's identity is all about kind of being free from a monarch and having citizen electors and all that, right? We need to establish a monarchy. Yeah, I would. I'm just gonna be neutral because I don't really care. Monarchy is. I know a lot of people in the distant right like the LARP monarchy, and it's not. But but I don't really have an opinion either way. I just think that in America, no, we don't need a monarchy. In Europe, I wouldn't abolish it. So whatever. Depends on the context. Space colonization is a good solution for supplying the lack of raw material on Earth. Yes, it's a good solution, but technology needs to be developed but for right now, we don't have the technology. Well, we do, but it's not as developed to actually make it as a sustainable, like just where we could add it. But once the technology is getting there, and we could get it soon, where we could just continually get raw materials from space. But one thing, we would need to pass a law where to prevent. Well, it's not even hyperinflation because it's not really wealth. It's just raw materials, right? Like iron and such, right? So actually, yeah, it's not. The thing is, like when Spain got silver from the New World, they like completely destroyed silver. But it's like we're not really getting it for riches, right? So the way I would do it though is like if we're importing like diamonds and gold or whatever from the space, there would be a regulated amount that we take in so that we don't cause hyperinflation. All sciences, even chemistry and biology, are not absolute and are subject to being shaped by our society. No, chemistry and biology are real, no matter your social or your societal context. No. The police should be armed. In our current society, they should. Generally speaking, they should. But I would like to see a reversing. Like if we actually got our like homogeneous society. If we actually lived in a very peaceful, very trustful, a high trust society, I don't think even it would need the police to be armed. But maybe with a small pistol or a taser or something, the police should be generally armed. But I totally agree they should be armed in this type of society they live in. But if we lived in a high trust, very low crime society, like maybe in Norway or something, right? I don't really think the police, maybe the police shouldn't be armed. And if Norway doesn't import more immigrants, we could probably keep it like that. So, but yeah, generally speaking, even in the high trust, in a sort of society like that, I would still have them, somewhat be armed. So I guess so. Transgender individuals will never really be of the gender they would like to be. That's pretty much true. Homosexuals should not be treated equally to heterosexuals with regards to marriage and, yeah. As a society, you shouldn't be a dick to people who are homosexual, but you should, but as a society, we understand that, we have marriage for the purposes of a man and woman raising children, and that's just the way God is, that's the way our culture is, and it just undermines the whole, the marriage isn't just, we just super duper love each other. So, and such. So, yeah, homosexuals is just it's a weird perversion, but if you're gay, we're not going to, throw you into the, gulag, but, we're not going to treat you equally, because we value things, and we don't put you on an equal pedestal to what's right, and such. Should not, yeah. The purpose of the judiciary should be those who punish, who went against the law. That's kind of why we have it. Multiculturalism is a threat to our society. Definitely. Definitely. It just destroys, if everywhere's the same, then nothing's unique. I would fucking hate it if everything was the same thing. It should be, I go to the Netherlands to experience Dutch culture, and then I go to Turkey to experience Turkish culture. They shouldn't be mixed. The influence of religion should decrease. It actually should increase. Dismissals of employees should be forbidden except if it's justified. Well, what if I just don't want them? I understand I understand the purpose, but it's like if I run a business and I just don't like the guy, maybe he's like absolutely necessary. What do you mean by that? And What if they just? What if he just does it? Like, what if he does just a slightly shitty job, and I think there should be someone better? I mean, I run the business. I want to be able to fire people if I don't want them, right? Humans should neither eat nor exploit animals. Chickens exist. I rest my case. The main goal of a couple is to make at least one child. We should be having policies in place to have married couples have children. Yeah. I do not have any problem if other official languages are added or replace the already existing official language in my country. That's absolutely disagree. If I lived in Hungary, what makes Hungary Hungarian, a part of it, is the Hungarian language. If people just start speaking Polish, then it's wholly different. It's not just Hungary, it's just still Hungary. No, it's Hungary, but it's retarded because now it's Polish. No, I'm not saying Polish is a beautiful language. I'm just saying it's not Hungary anymore. Absolutely, I do have a problem. Loans contracted in the public sphere should not necessarily be refunded. I mean, then why the fuck would anyone give out loans if they're not going to be paid back? Then they're grants. So I guess I disagree, right? But, so if a state got a loan, they shouldn't pay it back? I mean, then no one would give out loans. I mean, loans are for hey, we're gonna fund our project now because then we're gonna make so much money out. We're gonna make a lot of money from this project, and then we'll be able to pay you back, and then pay you back a little bit interest because you took that risk to give us it because you might have crashed. And I'd rather disagree. The social roles of women and men can partly be explained by biological differences. Definitely. I mean, that's why a big thing I explain about this is that imagine if a woman slaps a man and a man slaps a woman. Now, they both slapped another person. Now, technically, under egalitarian structure, they should be treated equally, but socially, we don't. If a woman slaps a man, it's not seen as bad as if a man slaps a woman. And you're like, oh, well, I want to get rid of that. I want to make it equal. Well, it's like, well, think about it. There's a reason why that's a societal expectations, because when a man slaps a woman, we understand, men are a bit stronger, and it's like, you didn't really need a slapper. When a woman slaps a man, it's kind of like, well, okay, maybe an asshole-ish thing. Maybe she should have done it, shouldn't have not done it, but hey, come on. It's how would you describe it? It's like, well, the man could take it. I think that's the societal attitude, and maybe if a woman's just beating up a man and slapping him around, that maybe that should be a crime. But societally, if a man's beating up and slapping around a woman, our social mores and values are definitely explained by biological differences. In those cases, the differences in strength. So absolutely agree. National chauvinism during sport competitions is not acceptable. So what, are you just going to be like, so I'm not going to cheer for my team because my team represents me? Why? Why is it bad? Why is it not acceptable? Fucking Marxist retard. GMOs should be forbidden outside of research and medical purposes. A lot of people are scared of GMOs, but if you've actually studied what GMOs do, they actually will increase just the ability of us to create more food in smaller spaces, and maybe make food more tasty or sweet or whatever, and maybe more nutrients. So it's not just spare nutrients. Maybe there's just so much nutrients in one. So GMOs have a good future, but no, they should not be forbidden. Selfishness is the overriding drive in the human species, no matter the context. Not no matter the context. Someone made a good point. It was actually in a blog called My Nationalist Pony, of all things. They said that some people, care less about their right to life than the right to have an identity. People were charging headfirst into columns of men getting slashed down, getting killed, because they believed in a higher calling of their civilization. They laid down their lives for a grander purpose. I mean, if you're selfish, then why would you help, do something for your country, for your community, for your faith, or whatever? Foreigners enrich our culture. No, what enriches our culture is keeping our culture the way it is. I go to England. I want to see English people. I want to hear English spoken. I want to celebrate the English culture. I don't want to go there and feel like I'm in fucking Islamabad. Social assistance discourages people from working. It depends on the social assistance, but I think giving it to the generally needy is something that's right, and a sort of safety net in people in terms of sickness and unemployment. But generally speaking, we should have it where after a few weeks they should We give them, we try to get them jobs, and you get off the social assistance. It's supposed to be a safety net, not a safety web where you're stuck in a safety net. So you fall, you get captured, and then it bounces you back up. Nobody is by nature predisposed to criminality. No, some people are just, I mean, yes, we could have a discussion on like what brought people to like do something, but some people are, even signs like if you look at serial killers, it's like, I remember when this guy was young, he crushed bugs. It wasn't like he was like, this kid was, this kid was only like 9 years old. Like, why is he crushing bugs? It's because there's something, he's just maybe he has some sort of antisocial personality disorder, and that's just something he was born with. And now that doesn't mean just because he's going to commit a crime, but it's much more likely he will. So I disagree. No one should get rich from owning a business, housing, or land. Why? Like, what if I made a thing, I get rich from selling, a product to the people that they want, and I'm able to afford a better car and a better house because of it. I provide something, and then, why? Why should no one get rich from that? It makes no sense. Oh, you're exploiting it. I mean, I fail to see the exploitation, to be quite honest. I mean, just piss off Marxist scum. I want to see if I'm like answering. No one should get rich. No. Abortion should be limited to specific cases. Yeah, I made a video about where I said I'm a moderate on abortion. I generally think that the first few, there's a balance. Again, as I said, it's kind of weird. I'm very extreme in certain things. I'm kind of moderate on a lot of things too. But in abortion, I'm kind of moderate. I think late-term abortion should be banned. Early, like the first 3 months of a pregnancy, these should be allowed. I'm just in between. Biologically, human beings are designed for heterosexuality. I mean, this is like this is what I was saying when we were talking about it was a social construct or not, and it's not. The fact that some schools and universities are private is not a problem. Yeah, definitely. I believe in universal education. I think people should be educated. They should have the basic knowledge. Now, I think there needs to be deep reform in at least America's public school system. But that being said, if you're rich and you want to go to a private university, give the most superb, elite education, I don't see why not. But that increases inequality. It's like, so some people are just better speakers than others, and they're able to outspeak people in freedom of speech. But that leads to unequal outcomes. If one person speaks and he's not as charismatic, he's not going to draw as much crowds as this other person. So who cares? As long as you both have a right to speak, who cares? Yeah, not a problem. It is important to encourage an agriculture that maintains a food biodiversity, even the output is inferior. I don't know. Euthanasia should be authorized. I generally don't want to, but I think that if we restrict it to just like you're terminally dead and we don't want you to suffer, I guess. But it's very, very on itchy ground, in my opinion. It is not acceptable that human action should lead to the extinction of species. I mean, we kill people. It depends. We should generally avoid it, but we depends on the species. Like, what if we like? There's so many types of species. Like, it's not just like giraffes, monkey. There's like so many. And yes, sometimes they might, but we should generally avoid it. Also, I'll slightly disagree. The age of retirement should be lowered. I don't know. We're having the extended lifespan, and our pension systems are going to keep up if we live half our lives in retirement. If you know what I mean. Changing the system radically is counterproductive. We should rather transform it progressively. Yeah. That's kind of the way you do it is pushing the Overton window. You have to take control of the social institutions of society. You have to be in charge of the media. You have to be in charge of the schooling. You need to be one pushing the culture, and generally from that's where politics arise, by pushing the Overton window. That's why memes are so effective. But as you push the people thinking immigrations, because can you imagine before Trump came along, people actually thought that being anti-illegal immigration was the furthest right position. And now that's just a basic right-wing position, and the so-called far-right position is reducing immigration, period. So, and we're trying to push it where we're how would you say it? But being just progressively over time, we push the society towards accepting more stronger values and ideas that instead of just throwing it all into the bathwater in like one fell swoop. Revenues and capital should be taxed to redistribute wealth. I don't like the term redistribution. I kind of like more the term like if it's like, oh well, rich people should be taxed at a higher rate, and we should use that money for social services. Yeah, now is that redistribution? In it just another name? Yeah, but I just the thing that conjures up in my mind is that we tax rich people and just give it to poor people. And no, the purpose is we tax rich people at a fair amount, and then we use the revenue to provide opportunity and building up the nation and such. So neutral. Tradition should be questioned. A lot of people ask this. I disagree, just as a general thumb. Like, for example, to understand why I think this kind of, like, you might be thinking, like, irrationally, well, yeah, maybe we should question our traditions. And, it's like, well, what if we have child sacrifice? So we should question that tradition, even if we've done it. Yeah, but depends on like, for example, would you question Christmas? Now you're like, well, that's kind of dumb. Well, yeah. Why do we get a tree and throw it in our room, in our living rooms, and having them put tree dust everywhere or whatever, right? Well, because, like, why? Like, why question Christmas? Like, we're doing this because it gives us a sense of, celebrating a past. It's part of our identity, a part of our culture. It makes us feel one with each other. It's something that connects us all. Something that makes us more, that's beyond just some, our materialistic lives, and just celebrating something in our past. And, like, why not, like, even, like, why question Christmas? It's like, well, like, yeah, yeah, we have to wrap stuff up, and there's Christmas music, and, like, why question? Like, why not everything has to be questioned. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to disagree. A good policy is a pragmatic policy without ideology. Now, that sounds good in theory. So I'm going to somewhat agree. But the thing is that not, like, all political ideology is ideological. Like, all policy is ideological. Like, if someone believes in, the will of the people for democracy and someone just doesn't care, well, it doesn't. If the pragmatic thing is to suspend democracy for the sake of security, someone who likes democracy isn't going to do it, even if it's pragmatic. They're being ideological, even though it's not pragmatic. So, actually, I'm going to go neutral. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. No, people are just when a woman is born, she's born a girl, and then she becomes. It's not that she becomes a woman from society. She's already a woman. She's just being. With all the biology that comes with it. No. Individuals who get out of prison should be accompanied in their reinsertion. Yeah, I agree. I think there should be more places to help prisoners who aren't extremely violent from be able to, after they serve their sentences, to be able to. They should be, there should be programs to help people out, I would say. In some specific conditions, the death penalty is justified. Yeah. I think I've talked about the death penalty before, but generally speaking, I just kind of think that some crimes are just so, especially, just so out, it's just that it's just justified, just the way it should work. And a lot of people are like, well, it's taking a life. Well, that's like saying, it's state-based kidnapping for arresting and throwing it and, putting in solitude a person who kidnapped a woman. It's not the same thing. The state has certain rights that it has a power on, taking your money, has a power on instituting violence and arresting you, and yes, it has the power to take your life if in certain conditions. Differences of treatment and quality of life in our society show that racism is still omnipresent. No, the reason why racism exists is because of tribalism, which will never go away, and the differences of quality of life can be explained by biology and culture. So disagree. Justice should always take into consideration the context and the past of the condemned and adapt the penalty accordingly. Yeah, generally I agree. Activists must always act in strict accordance with the law. Yeah, I would say so. Members of a nation or culture have some unchangeable characteristics that define them. Now, that's something I'm, like, the biggest fan of. Like, just 100% I agree with this. This is like something I talked about every single day. It's like one of the biggest things why, it's like one of the cornerstones of my main ideology. And most other things I kind of have an opinion on or don't have an opinion on or just slightly, but this is like the main bread and butter of my channel. It's like members of a nation or culture have some unchangeable characteristics that define them. Like, just 100%. 100%. I keep repeating this, but Poland is Polish because of the Polish people there, the ethnicity of Poland. Polish, of the Polish language, of the Polish culture, the Polish people that are united under their history. They have their own mannerisms and ways of life. Yes, definitely. The filing and storage of personal records should be delimited strictly, and database cross-checking should be forbidden. Well, like, what if we're... No, I don't think so. It is merit that explains differences of wealth between two individuals, generally. It's part of it. What was it? Is that it is not the only thing. I'll put neutral. It's not just merit, but merit is a big part of it. Technological progress must not change society too quickly. I actually agree with that. Just for stability purposes, and sometimes some technology just shouldn't be invented. If there's a big debate about that, but research produced by my country should not be available to other countries. No, not really. Like, if we produce it and then we sell our product, we invented a cure for, I don't know, arthritis, and then we're selling it. I don't see why not. Why should it only be available to us? And not that I would say, if we invent something good, it has to be forced to everyone else. Has to be, if we create it and we sell it, we could share, maybe our vaccine to cure arthritis around the world, for example. So disagree. Wage labor is a form of theft from the worker by companies. This is assuming the labor theory of value is true, which is not. Citizens should take priority over foreigners. It should take the only priority. There should be literally no consideration about foreigners. The only consideration should be, it's like, hey, are they here illegally? Like, are they overstaying their time? Or are they trying to pose a threat to our country? That's like the only time they should be considered. They shouldn't be put... It's all about the citizens when it comes for the state providing stuff. So, absolutely agree. My religion must be spread as widely as possible. Like, no, not by force, but by, but I would say by, how do you say it? But by, no, I'm just putting neutral. It is a small group that consciously and secretly controls the world. The Jews, no, I'm kidding. I'm going fast here. I don't want to, as I said, I'm not going to explain into detail because there's like, how much more questions do we have? After 2 more, it's like 37 more questions, right? So I'm going to still be here for another, 15 minutes or so, right? 20 minutes. So I'm just going to go a bit quick here. Sorry for I don't go any detailed here. It is a small group that consciously and secretly controls the world. A lot of people want to believe that. I think that's human psychology. But I think a lot of people just can't accept that certain people just, one crazy person could change the whole world. I think that's actually kind of more white-pilling. That, one person could literally change the course of history. So, no, I disagree. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no such thing as bigger powers kind of thinking of bigger things, but it's a lot of people want just the whole world running by, like, all of evil is just because of some small group and all that, while evil is actually just something that exists in all of us, and it's our job just to be better people. Activism in existing political organizations is not relevant to change society. It's actually probably the biggest thing we can do to change society. I don't know what else would be. At least a more better option, I would say. Nowadays, employees are free to choose when signing a contract with their future employer. I don't know. Hormonal differences can explain some differences in individual characteristics between women and men. Again, as I said, I'm a very biological determinist here, but definitely, yeah. Differences in biology explain differences in characteristics between men and women. This is a reason why transgender people who say they're female but were born male are destroying women. There's a reason why we have different men and women sports. It's not segregation, it's just biology. A good citizen is a patriot. Well, of course. Patents should not exist. What if I make something and then why would I make anything if it's just going to be stolen from me? If I invent something, it should be like, hey, you invented something great, and then, you should be able to make a good money from it. We should always distance ourselves from protesters who use violence. Yeah, generally, as a general rule of thumb. It is necessary to avoid private monopoly. Yeah, private monopoly, I would agree with. But state-run monopolies, I would kind of make a slide. Like, for example, like a private monopoly might be like a private power line company. Like, there's only one power line. You can't have 5 power lines or 20 power lines. There's only one power line. That's a natural monopoly, right? So it should be, those types of things should be state-run, and then that's fine. But generally speaking, something that could have lots of competition should be, that's the mark of capitalism, right? Which is something I support. Competition. So that's why we need to break some things up. It is acceptable that there are rich and poor people, of course. That's just... Now, I agree that, rich people should pay higher taxes and that poor people should have opportunities and services to help them out. But, generally speaking, if you're a billionaire or a millionaire, as long as you contribute and get taxed, I'm fine. You can continue being a billionaire if you want, just as long as you're a patriot. A language is defined by its users, not by its scholars. I actually disagree with that. I imagine if, like, English was defined by, like, inner city ghetto language, right? No, now I understand you don't have to speak proper, scholarly English, but that's just, there's standards. This is what it officially is. This is what it is. And the people who misuse it are misusing it. Now, maybe over decades or over centuries, maybe just by inertia things just kind of change. Maybe languages change, but a language isn't just defined just whatever it wants. There's standards to it. Market economy is optimal when it is not regulated. Depends on what it means by optimal. Just because it's more efficient doesn't mean it's more optimal in terms of societal overall goodness. Energy and transport structure should be a public matter. Not all energy and transport, but I'm sympathetic to the argument. Banks should remain part of it. I somewhat agree. Yeah, I agree. There should be a public bank that helps the people, but generally speaking, people need to stand up for their ideals, even though it leads them to betray their country. Now, that's one thing I always talked about. A lot of people say this is anti-nationalistic, but I think it's like, like when we run against America's immigration, or someone in Europe runs against the immigration policies of them, or Australians run against the Australian immigration policy, or whatever, it's not that they hate the country. They're like, we want to preserve England for what it is, and that's why we're fighting for our country. We want them... we're going against the grain. We're calling out our country's stupid policies. That doesn't mean they hate the country. It actually means we love the country, because that's what we're fighting for. Yeah. We need to make compromises with the opposition to apply our ideas. I mean, sometimes you have to be ideological, like, how about instead of... I mean, the thing is, sometimes that's just how politics works if you have in a liberal democracy, but the point is that, you have to play dirty politics and take over the institutions to push society towards your favorite, not just allow them to dominate the culture. But in a liberal democracy, the one we have now, for example, I want all immigration lowered. Like, well, instead of 100,000, we want 1 million. You want 100,000. How about 500,000? Now, 500,000 is too much. I think it's way too much for my country. But is it better than 1 million? Yeah. So I would apply it. I wouldn't just throw it all out because I wouldn't want to sign something. But the overall goal being is less immigration. If that means, like, at the end I only get 900,000 per year instead of 1 million, well, we're lowering it by 100,000. So yeah. Violence against individuals is never productive. I mean, generally speaking, you should avoid violence. Sabotage is legitimate under certain conditions, I guess. I am equally concerned about the inhabitants of my country and those of other countries. No, I am more concerned about the needs and things in my own country. That's just how it works. Now, I hope everyone else gets depends on the context. So I'm just going to actually put somewhat agree, because it just depends on what you mean. How would I describe it? It'd be kind of like, I want Palestinians to have their own state. I want the Kurds to have their own state. I want the Jews to have their own state. But I want my people to have my own state too. I want the English to have their own state. I want the Danish to have their own state. I want the Italians to have their own state, right? So just because they're foreigners to me doesn't mean they doesn't mean I don't care about their right to self-determination, or that I hope they're just generally good. But I just want that to be for my country too. Yeah. So I'm just about somewhat agree. Because generally speaking, I more agree with, I hope my country gets the better end of it. Transhumanism will be beneficial because it will allow us to improve our capabilities. Generally speaking, I would say so. I hope it, but we have to be sure that as we advance into this technological age, that we don't destroy our humanity. That's just one warning I would say. If two countries have similar economies, but has no negative impact, do they mean like free trade? Or do they mean like free market? Because the free market, even if it's like the same systems, free market, even if it's between the same countries with similar economies, they're still bad. And now free trade, that's a different matter. It's less harmful than not, but I'm just going to be neutral. We should generally, and trade, be putting an industrial policy in place where we're able to be self-sufficient and being export-oriented so we can reindustrialize. Mass strike is a good way to acquire new rights. Labor rights? Yeah. The categories women and men are social constructs and should be given up. That's just fundamentally false, though. Women and men are women and men because of biology, because of chemistry, because of sociology, because of a lot of things. Well, not sociology. That would be like, oh, that's their thing. It's because of sociology. It's the baseline. What makes men and women is biology and neurology and chemistry and all that. So the categories of women and men are, how would I describe this? It would be, how would I describe it? It would be, but as I was saying, it's women and men, and that's just how it should. And it's not a social construct. It's just the way it is. So no, absolutely disagree. Offshoring and outsourcing are necessary evils. Well, no, they're just evils. Yes, you might be able to get more profit from offshoring, but there is a greater societal interest to invest in the country to improve your workers' conditions over you being able to order another yacht. It is necessary to massively invest in research to improve productivity. Yeah, we should invest in research and development. That pays off more than we invest in it, usually. Armed struggle in the country is sometimes necessary. Is that just the same thing about revolution? Somewhat. As I said, sometimes revolutions end up good. But as I said, generally speaking, should avoid LARPing about the revolution every time. It is acceptable that some industry sectors are private. Well, yeah, I talk a lot about state industry and state industrial policy and all that, but we shouldn't. I actually fundamentally still am a capitalist. I think if you run a mom and pop shop and all that, and you're selling bird feeders, you should be able to make profit and make money, be able to have a better house and a better living standard. Just generally, that's just capitalism, be competing and making money and just being free from that. And, obviously I think there's a national interest that comes above just pure market, efficiency, right? But I'm not against a market in the entire sense. Marriage should be abolished. No, it should actually be expanded in the sense of it should be heralded for the protection, not expanded as in expanded to other people. It should be, wrong choice of words, more like protected and enshrined and given benefits. No, it should not be abolished. Just because marriage and the family unit is, if you just look at all the studies, so one of the fundamental building blocks of society, and having a married, strong couple, having children with it is, it's one of the biggest indicators of how the future generations are going to end up. Children that go and grow up in a married household, well, not married, like a single parent household, are more likely, as I mentioned before, my family videos, just they're more likely to go to, drop out of school and get in crime, do drugs, have mental health issues. It's continuously all these things. I mentioned all the factors in my marriage thing. Insurrection is necessary to deeply change society. Neutral. There's so much. It's like the same thing over and over again. It's like sexual assaults are partly caused by men's natural impulse. So all men, if they see a sexy woman, like, man, she looks nice. But that's some men. But the thing to just grab a woman without her consent is another matter. Now, with men, like, well, if the woman, like, I really wish I could just have my way with her. But it's not like, they actually go out and, in the minds, usually it's just implied there's consent. It's not like that. But it's like, if they wanted to go ask her out, they would ask her out and get her consent. But what gets someone to just sexually assault someone is not just men being men. It goes a step further than what. It's like when a man's like, oh, I really want to tap that. This guy's like, I don't care about the situation. I'm gonna defy all societal mores and this moral compass and just go out. So it's not just a natural impulse that all men are just gonna sexually assault people. Foreigners living in my country should be allowed to act politically equally to those who have the nationality. That's just no. The purposes of the nation is to provide a sense of for the citizens of the country. You are a loyal citizen of the country, and you are free to and the state purpose is to help you be to fulfill to help you out in your life. It's not for foreigners. Foreigners are just here to study or work or whatever, and they're out. They're not here to permanently take part in the political process. No. Nuclear fission, when well maintained, is a good source of energy. Yeah, the anti-nuclear hype is all that, just hype. There's things there could be worried about, but just because it's, but yeah, nuclear energy is really good. It's a good source of, it's actually one of the best things we could do to move out of fossil fuels, actually. Especially with modern technology, it's not like we're all going to have another Chernobyl, too. Reduction of waste should be done by reducing production. Yeah, I think we should generally reduce our material goods. Maintaining strong economic growth should be an objective for the government. I mean, yeah. Now, does this mean just having GDP growth at the expense of the people? No. But the government should maintain that the economy is working for the people. So generally, borders should be eventually abolished. No, I think borders should actually be expanded in the sense that they should be... I keep saying expanded, and it always doesn't make sense. I think I'm just trying to say abolish, which means get rid of, and then expand, which means grow. And I think I'm trying to say strengthen, like make it more borders. I want more borders, is what I'm trying to say. Conditions of life in jail should be greatly improved. Yeah, I guess. I mean, if you're going to throw someone away, you might as well allow them to, maybe go to, see the library and be able to, or something, Minimal levels of salary should be ensured to make sure that the worker can live off his or her work. I agree, the minimum wage should exist. It's just a matter of again, market versus the societal good. And I think that if you're going to hire someone, there needs to be a minimum. Every person's worth at least a minimum amount for his labor. Just as to avoid just complete, there's a social responsibility, as I said. There has to be, you can't just make more money. You can't just be able to make, an extra $1 billion because you pay everyone $2 an hour. So the values of my country are superior to those of other countries. Generally, I would say, it depends on, everyone thinks values are superior. Even the moral relativists always say, oh my God, Alabama is so backwards because they don't want abortion in the third trimester. And so yeah, even moral relativists believe that because as long as you have a moral system, there will always be a superior country. So for example, I value the values and traditions and such of of America and Europe and in general over Islam. Now that doesn't mean I'm better and I think we should take over. It's just that I like the way it is. I revel in it. Not revel. It's just I enjoy it. It's part of my identity, and obviously it's better than It's just naturally, as long as you believe in something that's as long as you have a moral system, you'll always believe there's something superior. So I agree. Wait, what was the question? The values? Yeah. Schools should mostly teach our values, traditions, and fundamental knowledge. Yeah. The labor market enslaves the workers. I think it actually liberates them as long as there is proper regulation. Order and authority should be respected in all circumstances. See, it's always this all. There's always exceptions. Like, what if, like, some people are just not fit for it. Sometimes, they're just doing it something morally wrong. So not always. Fatherland, work, family. Seems pretty freaking nice. So let's see here. I have, let's see. So I'm a essentialist, basically meaning that I believe fundamentally that the thing that makes the world are based off fundamental. There's just certain values and structures in the world. Not structures. Men are men because of biology, not men are men because of society, essentially. Rehabilitative versus punitive. As I said, I'm balanced. I think there should be a death penalty. I think there should be, stricter crimes and not stricter crimes, like stricter, there should be people being able to, if you're a violent individual, but there should be a path for people who are non-violent to be able to, there should be alternatives to incarceration. Whatever works to reduce, social anarchy. Either that be punitive or rehabilitative, depends on the situation. That's why it's kind of balanced there. Conservatism, yeah, I am generally speaking a conservative. For most things, for maybe, like, as I said, almost 3/4 of things, and just kind of neutral and everything else. But basically, I think life should, people should kind of stay within their, like, why always progress? Like, and, some things, progress is actually degenerating. There's a good Bible verse that I learned. It's like, I forgot, I don't know how to say it, but it's basically, cursed are those who say, evil is good. Like, maybe just because we're approving of something doesn't mean it's liberating. That's why we should generally just kind of stick to, staying the way things are. Nationalism versus internationalism. Generally speaking, I believe, I'm just a giant-ass nationalist, essentially. I just believe in nation-states and not self-determination. And that small internationalism of 12% is like, generally speaking, I don't agree with. I think that's just because, like, I believe in, like, I think it's like that question where it's like, oh, you think the research should be available? I'm like, yeah, I guess. So, it's not like I'm an internationalist. I just think, I think other nations, we shouldn't be isolationist, I don't think. We should generally stick to our own affairs, but we should be able to talk with others. I should be able, I want to travel, I want to study in other countries too, but that doesn't mean I want to fundamentally change the character of those other nations. So yeah, it doesn't, I like people around the world. I just don't want the entire world to be a multicultural, multiracial, fafala, however you say it. Capitalism for communism, pretty self-explanatory. I'm more in favor of a market economy over a planned economy, but there is some, maybe a slight exceptions, but generally speaking, I'm a capitalist. And then, but then again, this comes where regulation versus laissez-faire. I'm not a complete market optimization efficiency overall. I believe regulation is necessary for the benefit of the nation. Now, this is kind of weird. Ecology versus productivity. I generally think I'm more ecological. I think because a lot of this was like, we should just not eat food. I think this is where, like, we shouldn't eat food. We shouldn't, like, exploit animals. And I said no. But as you know, I'm like one of the biggest environmentalists there is. I'm like, in general, as I said, we should, like, move away from fossil fuels. We should get in green energy. As you saw that. And then reform versus revolution. As I said, generally, I'm a reformist. There's exceptions. It's not because I don't want to tolerate. And then, like, oh, is revolution never justified? Well, sometimes, like the American Revolution, it worked out real. But as I said, general rule of thumb, you should generally take part in the institutions, take part in what is already established, and take over your culture from there, and then take over the government. So that was my video, Fatherland, Work, Family. This is my thing. This probably sets me up really well. So I'll see you guys. Like, favorite, subscribe, because I want to get more subscribers, and check out my Patreon if you guys really like my video. So aim high, wander on, from America with Russian love.